your problem is not finding people that want to invest. Your problem is finding a good deal that makes financial sense in order for someone to put you the money in. The deal will always attract the money, right? So go get the deal first, lock it up, and then the money will find you. If it's a good deal that makes sense, the money will find you.
Welcome back to Cash Flow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss, and today my guest is Justin Brennan. Justin, how you doing?
What's up, man?
Good to see you, man.
Thanks for having me in the studio.
It's been a little while to get this put together, but I really appreciate you taking the time out. Nowadays, you could be in Texas, you could be in Arizona, you could be in Vegas, you could be working on something here in San Diego. So thanks for taking a little time for us.
It's an honor, man. Thanks for having me in.
I just want to talk to everybody and give them a little bit of background about you. So the Brennan Pohl Group, how long have you been in this real estate game?
The company was founded in 2009,
Okay.
mainly out of the financial crisis. I met my business partner in the back of a grad school classroom in 2005 and 6. And I tell people the story. They're like, what? We were sitting there between breaks, and he's on his laptop, and I'm on mine. I kind of peek over to see what he's doing.
What he's working on.
And it looked like an Atari game going on a screen, like a live Atari game on Google Maps. and I asked him, I said, like, what are you looking at? And he's like, well, I'm watching a battle in Iraq right now.
What? No.
That's literally the expression I gave him. I'm like, what?
Wow.
And then I'm like, who are you, first of all? And then what are you doing? And he kind of explained that he worked for a company called Tapestry Solutions at the time, and he was the chief technology officer. So they had designed software for the U.S. military to track all the assets in a battlefield in real time. Right. And I'm like, well, you're cool as shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Show me more.
Show me more.
Right.
So we just kind of connected at that point, but we always talked about rental properties.
Right.
And cash flow and apartments and that whole game, right? Long story short, here comes the financial crisis a few years later, and I was getting my ass handed to me. I'm in real estate, so I don't have any money, but I knew we had to buy property.
Right.
So I just thought about anybody I could. I'm like, who do I know that's not affected right now, directly, like I am,
Right.
who I can go to, and they can bring in some of the capital, and I can bring the sweat, right? I can bring the knowledge, the ability to find deals, analyze them, put them together, run the company, do all the sweat, and we can partner. And then that way, their capital, I do everything else,
Right.
100% of everything else, and
Yep.
we'll split it 50-50. So yeah, we started the company in 2009, Brennan Pohl Group, and we brought our first condo rental property for $100,000
Nice.
in Murrieta, California, of all great places. And then we went to duplexes and triplexes and quads, and we did that mostly with our own money. But then we weren't kind of like growing and scaling the way we wanted to, and I was trying to figure out like why, like dude. Then I came across this beautiful thing on YouTube called OPM, other people's money, and I started watching it. And
What
I'm like,
what a concept.
what a
right?
concept, because I didn't know, the whole concept of leveraging my money with other people's money, and that people would want to do it and they'd want to invest with us, and then we could quote unquote syndicate, right? That's what everybody, the flashy term.
Yep.
And people ask me like, what's syndication? I said, it's a sexy term for people collaborating with money.
Right.
That's all it is, right? It's all it is. So anyhow, then we started going out and buying larger apartment complexes, and that started the Kansas City deal.
I love it. And before we get into the Kansas City deal, real quick, I want you to just highlight, because we talked about OPM. Let's talk philosophy. What is your real estate philosophy so it can help kind of guide it for a listener who's like, okay, well, where's Justin getting his mindset when he's going into deals?
Well, so in 2018, we had about 20 units and about $3.5 million of assets, and it was mostly with our own money.
Right.
Okay. So you're thinking, oh, that's great. Like you have $3.5 million, and it's mostly yours, and you're going to retire on it, a little nest egg, you're good to go.
Right.
Okay. But we wanted more than that, right? Some people may not, but we wanted more than that. And we realized we were running out of our own money. Well, let me ask, and this is simple mathematics. You can have 100% of $3.5 million, or today we have 685 plus units and $180 million in assets, and we have 40% of $180 million. So you can do the basic math, right? Yeah. You can keep where you're at, totally cool, or you can scale. And scaling takes OPM, right? It takes you leveraging your money with other people's money. And so that was my mindset of going, okay, well, we want to go to technically 10,000 units and $1 billion in assets.
Yep.
You're not going to do it alone.
Right.
Even Grant Cardone doesn't do it alone. Nobody does it alone. I mean, you could take people like Elon Musk. I mean, do you know what percentage of Tesla he owns?
What percent does he own?
Less than 10%. So 90% of it's OPM.
Right.
Right? You could take Amazon, Mr. Jeff Bezos. Do you know how much he owns of Amazon?
Publicly traded company.
Less than 8%.
Right.
Most of it's OPM, right? So they even know. They're not dumb.
Right.
And that's in the business side of it.
And that's what a lot of people miss, is that they think that a lot of the people they see out there that are successful, especially in our industry, are doing it all on their own and not doing OPM. And that's just not the case. To scale, you need a couple of things, but most importantly, you need a process. And what helps fast track it is OPM. Yeah. So talk to us then. You brought up the Kansas City deal, and I think it's a great segue to start getting your first set of good apartment deals. And I've heard you talk about this kind of stuff before, but I want you to break it down. How'd you find it? You know, what kind of product was it? Let's go from there.
Yeah, so people ask, how did you go out of state, right? Because you're in California and now you're going to go out of state. How did you start that process? Well,
far out of state too. That's just not next door.
Yeah, so like anybody, I went to a syndication conference or a conference about real estate and multifamily and money and capital, right? And I met with a bunch of people while I was there, got to see who was doing things, not doing things, and how they were doing it. So that was kind of like the light bulb. And then how do I start to identify markets that I would want to invest into outside of California? So we looked at many. Arizona was one of them. Nevada, that's close, right? And then I had a broker that I had met at this event say, hey, dude, you need to come and look at Missouri, like Kansas City.
Right.
My first response was like, Kansas City? But
where are the Chiefs? What?
Right. But then he's like, no, just trust me. Fly out, trust me.
Right.
So I said, okay, let's go out and take a look. So I started doing some high-level analysis, and the three things you want to look for when you're going into any market is the median income, right? Population growth and job growth. So those are the three kind of data kickers. And you want population growth north of 1% a year.
Okay.
You want job growth ideally at 2% or more per year.
Okay.
And then you want median household income at least the average or the median for the nation or above. So 60,000 or more.
Right.
Ideally. And Kansas City had that and then some. So I said, cool, let's go take a look. So I flew out there. I mean, probably not the best timing. It was January,
winter?
The first week in January. It's like -10.
You had a sweater on?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, where did I come from?
It happened to be the weekend that the Chiefs were playing the Patriots in the divisional or the AFC title game, whatever it was.
Everything was packed.
Everything's packed. But I go out there and tour the city. But I will never forget this because I dropped in, flying in, driving towards the downtown, and I see cranes everywhere.
Right.
And it reminded me so much. How long have you been in San Diego?
Probably been in San Diego since 2010.
Okay. So in 2003, 4, 5, in downtown, when the ballpark was going up, all the skyscrapers, all the condo developments, everything was expanding at exponential speed. Cranes everywhere.
Yeah.
And I land in Kansas City and I see the same thing.
Really?
And I'm going, holy shit balls.
That light bulb went on.
Yeah, I'm going, this is San Diego 2.0.
Right.
And we can get in now when it's just now coming.
Gotcha.
Because if I could have done that then, right, this whole thing. So anyhow, get in, bought our first deal, 27 units.
Okay.
And how did I find it? Crexy.com. Right, went on to Crexy.com. So this is for anybody wondering how you do it. And we teach all our mentees the same thing. Leverage the on-market to get to the off.
Right.
Okay? Because you can either go direct to seller or direct to broker. Direct to seller or direct to broker. But if you're new, direct to broker is the best approach.
Right.
Because they have all the listings.
And talk about that. It's not just the listings they have right now on the
It's
market.
the pre-market.
Right.
Because for every deal you see on Crexy, that's only showing you actually 40% of the market.
Right.
60% of the market or more, you never even see the light of day. Because the brokers get the listing, they tee it up on their operating memorandums, they spit it out to their little database of investors to take a pre-look, right? They call it a first look, and then it gets snatched up a vast majority of the time in that pre-look phase. If it doesn't, then the broker says, okay, I'm going to stick it on the website and see what sucker will overpay. Right. And that's how the game works. So it's not that deals don't happen off of Crexy or LoopNet or any of these sites. Right. It's just that they're probably overpriced and need to be negotiated. And so anyhow, I leveraged those deals because the brokers were saying, hey, here's all my deals. So I found 3 deals, 3 brokers in Kansas City, and I went and I toured the properties, met the brokers, got kind of belly to belly with them. And then after about a month of kind of looking at different deals, then here they come with the pre-market stuff, sending to my inbox, and I found a couple deals. And then that's how it initiated it.
And that happens a lot with multifamily. I'm sure it happens in other parts of our market, but multifamily especially, because there's a lot of people sitting on multifamily property that they just need a broker to reach out and say, hey, I have someone who will pay you X.
Right.
And so they keep them kind of in that background, like you're talking about pre-market or off-market. And the brokers who are doing well, you meet them through that on-market deal. And then as you keep that connection going, then they'll come and say, hey, Justin, look what I got. And
Yeah.
boom.
Or, hey, I'm talking to this owner over here.
Yeah.
It's a 30 unit. I think it may be something you may be interested in.
Right.
You know, maybe I can get you some little financials on it. You can take a look at it. And then we can do a little pre-market, deal.
And I love it. So you got a broker to set this deal in front of you. Tell me a little bit about the structure. Do we use OPM there? What kind of race did we get? How'd that work out?
Yeah. So we bought it for $2 million. We got a 70% loan on that. Nice. So call that, what is that? Is that $1.3 million? Is that right?
Okay.
Am I got that right? Wait, what's
color of the crayons? But pretty close, yeah.
What's 70% of $2 million?
That's
$1.4 million, excuse me. $1.4 million loan, and we came in with about, with including renovation costs and closing costs, about $900,000 in equity.
Got it.
And with that, we brought in 10%.
Okay.
So we brought in $90,000.
Got it.
And then we raised $810,000 from our investors.
You raised that difference.
Yeah, and I brought that in with about 8 people.
Got it. So 8 people to raise that difference. And did you feel anxiety when you have a loan and you have that gap and you're like, I have to go raise roughly almost $1 million?
Yeah.
What do I got to do?
I shit in my pants, dude.
I love it. So that's normal. Okay.
Yeah. And I tell people the same, like all of our mentees in our projects, I tell them, like, listen, when you get executed, like you get a contract or a letter of intent executed, like that's when the hair is about to stand up on the back of your neck, because now it's real.
Right.
And now you're going to put a deposit in, even though it's refundable until you do your due diligence, but it's go time.
Yeah.
Right. And you got to show up or get the hell out. Right. And so, yeah, I was scared to death. You know, we had a couple people involved that had some interest, and so that's kind of got it off with $25,000 coming in, and I'm like, okay, you get a little momentum. But realistically, people need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
I mean, there's a great quote. I think it was one of Elon Musk's ex-wives. And they said, you know, one of the greatest things about Elon is that his ability to withstand levels of pressure in moments where most people would crack is the difference between great entrepreneurs and not.
I would agree.
Right? I mean, your ability to withstand being very uncomfortable, being broke even at times.
Or facing being broke.
Right. Facing bankruptcy, facing broke, facing all this stuff, and being able to stay calm in the midst of the storm, walk through it, and go to the other side. It's hard, right? It'd be easier to just tuck tail and run, right? Anybody can pull that one off.
That's true.
So
I personally looked at payroll more than once and been like, how is this going to happen? I personally looked at my bank account and going, how am I going to get through next month? And and I heard a similar quote saying, if you're not facing bankruptcy at least once a year, then you're not really an entrepreneur. That's one way to look at it.
Yeah, and there's some truth in that. So
talk to me about, and our audience, about how you close this out. So you got the deal, you raised money, and
and I'll be honest with you, there was a point where I'm like, oh God, we don't have like the money. Like we can't like, we don't have all the money raised.
Right.
But I would say this, we're about halfway through it, and we had about half the money raised.
Okay.
And so but always comes down to the 11th hour.
Right.
Anybody tells you you're going to have all the money raised like well in advance,
and
they're
relaxed.
full of shit.
Yeah.
Right. Anybody that's done this understands that you're going to come down to the 11th hour, and you may not have all the money needed that you said you were going to raise, but as long as you have enough money to close the escrow,
right,
you can close and then raise a little bit post-close.
Still be building, especially when we're talking about renovation, which has dollars attached to it, things like that.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense. So you close. What kind of renovation did you need to do before you were able to step your way out, whether that's refinance, whether that's, sell, whatever you decide?
So we did about $350,000 on that one, which included exterior renovations mostly.
Okay.
The interiors, about half the units were already renovated.
Cool.
So we had kind of a game plan on what we could do, and we went in there, freshened up paint. The big thing we did on all the units was the washer dryer connections.
Gotcha.
Because that was the big kicker, where we could bump rents quite a bit by doing that, and then just improving what was already done on the property and kind of taking it to the next stage. So
I agree.
Yeah.
Very, very nice. End of the day, what's your biggest takeaway from that, other than be okay in pressure? What's the biggest takeaway from that deal?
Start smaller. Like, I hear all these gurus saying, no, go to 50 plus units for your first deals, right?
Wow.
In theory, I understand why, right? It makes sense from financials, economies of scale, there's more zeros, blah, blah, blah. But it's just not realistic.
Right.
I mean, you need to start with 10 to 30 units. It's bite-sizable.
Yeah.
The capital raising is easier. Your side of it's going to be easier. The loan side is easier.
Right.
You're going to get brokers to actually talk to you because keep in mind, if you're newer, trying to get a broker in the upper game, 50-plus unit space or more, you're not getting a call back. Because the first thing they're going to ask you, and they're going to be able to smell you out like white on rice.
Talking about.
Right.
You don't have the track record. You don't have the funds there.
Yeah, they're going to smell you out. So the reason why you start 10 to 30 units is because there's more mom and pop in that space. Mom and pop sellers, mom and pop brokers, mom and pop lenders, mom and pop everything. So they expect you to be newer and more novice, which is why you can get through it. And then once you get one or two of those under your belt, then you can go for 50-plus units and go pay to play. No problem.
From the property management side of the house, I would tell anybody listening as well, 10, and even once you get over 22, 24 units, it's a different game. Okay, what you need on site, what kind of processes you need. You can bootstrap anything, south of 16 units. But as you start to get over that, it gets into no man's land, and then you're really that 30 to 50 unit. That's a big gap between you need professional on site versus I got a key holder, or I got, what you're looking for on the property management side. So I totally agree. Start with what you can handle. Cut your teeth on that, and then go to that next level.
Yeah, and if you end up losing a little bit of money, or you get screwed over by a contractor, which is inevitably going to happen.
Yep.
It's less zeros, right? And you can kind of recover from it. Versus if you make a big mistake on a big deal. I mean, I heard about this one guy that went syndicating a 240 unit for his first deal.
Wow.
And he pulled it off.
Good for him.
It was at the peak of he pulled it off, which was like mind blown. He lost the entire deal. And millions of dollars of investor money because he was making dumb decisions.
Yeah, just rookie
decisions. And it got run aside and lost his ass.
There is no replacement for experience, and experience generally has failure. Like, we failed. We've done stuff that we're like, shouldn't have done that one.
Yeah.
But calculated risk, it helps. And when you're not overextended, it does say a lot. Let's talk about something you brought up before. I think it's super important, and you talk about this in your own courses, raising money. Everybody is super afraid to raise money. What's the one or two things that you're telling them, like, okay, keep this in your mindset as you get out there?
Everybody wants to invest in real estate.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I could take a room of 100 people, stand up and say, who here would like to invest in real estate? I'd be willing to bet you 99 out of the 100 are like, yeah, man, if I had some money, or if I had this, or if I had a great deal, I'm in. I want to find it. Your problem is not finding people that want to invest. Your problem is finding a good deal that makes financial sense in order for someone to put you the money in, right? Because think about it. These people have their money in stocks, bonds, life insurance, other vehicles that they're earning 8-10% interest on, conservatively. So for them to come into a multifamily asset that's going to give them, say, 15 to 20+% return on their money per year, they just need to see that the deal makes sense, number one. And then they need to like and trust you. That if they give you their money, you're not going to be sitting on an American Greed show in 2 years telling them you lost it all and then going to jail for fraud. So I'd say there's three things that you need to raise money.
Okay.
A deal that makes financial sense, a pitch deck, right? A good pitch deck that helps explain what the deal is.
Got it.
In terms of, I give you X, $25,000. This is what I get for it. This is how long it's out, and this is when I get it back. Right. So good pitch deck that explains the deal.
Pretty simple, right?
Yeah, pretty simple.
Yeah.
And we have templates for all this stuff. And then lastly is a process. So that way when somebody says, yeah, I'd like to give you $25,000, you have a process to take that money in.
Right.
And get the money. So once you have those three things, getting people that say I want to invest is not the problem.
Talk to me about the chicken or the egg. I have investors ready to go, and then I go find a good deal, or I found a good deal, and then I'm banging down doors to try to make it happen. Yeah,
so it's twofold. You want soft commitments. So what I mean by that, and I do this every single day. I mean, I literally did it in the Trader Joe's 3 weeks ago, accidentally. I mean, I'm in the Trader Joe's at the checkout aisle, and I have this lady.
Always be raising.
Always be raising.
Justin Brennan, always be raising.
But this is how it went. Literally. I'm standing at the checkout aisle with my kids and stuff, and the lady's asking, how's your day going? I'm like, oh, it's good. Just finishing up some work and getting some things done. And I don't know how it came about. She's like, well, what do you do? And I said, well, I buy and invest in apartments, and we renovate them with investors around the country. And she's like, oh, that's pretty cool. I was just talking to my brother yesterday about this, and he's looking to invest in apartments. He just doesn't know how to do it or how to get started. Can I connect you guys on a 3-way text? And I'm like, of course. Now, I had a call with the guy. I didn't have a deal at the time, but I could get a soft commitment from him because what I did get is, hey, Justin, when you have a deal, I'm ready to go. So here's my information. I can invest 50 grand. Right. Here's my soft commitment and ready to go. So now I have him in my CRM database.
Boom.
So once I have a deal, it blasts out to everybody. So you can get soft commitments, but the deal will always attract the money, right? So go get the deal first, lock it up, and then the money will find you. If it's a good deal that makes sense, the money will find you.
I feel like there's a huge appetite to put your money somewhere, especially in real estate. Mostly, the most close you hear are you can only make generational wealth either owning your own business or owning real estate. So it makes sense why a lot of people want to invest. Is there any kind of education that you got? I mean, I know you talked to me before about working with Dad, but what kind of education did you get on doing this?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, to answer your question, yes, I got mentored, educated, but I sought a bunch of that out. Kind of coming up in the business a bit through my grandmother, God bless her soul, was 91 years old, driving around South Bay, San Diego, collecting rent on her apartments.
Love that.
On her little S10 Chevy truck.
Love that.
So I did learn a little bit through her, most of it through my dad. He was kind of the transitional character in our family that kind of made it big and, grew everything that he had done through the apartment space, mostly starting in single family homes first, then going to multifamily. Apartments and condos and all that, and then getting into bigger stuff where he's building 200-300 unit apartment complexes around the Southwest. But then he lost his ass on the financial crisis, everything. I mean,
as did a lot of people.
He went through a massive BK. So I learned a lot through that. And the biggest thing is at that time, he was in the build and sell game, which was I'll build 300 condos, sell 300 condos, right? And that's fine until the markets shift.
Yeah.
And then you get caught in a downward market. At that time, it was violent, as you know.
Oof.
So I learned the game, do not over leverage. Like if I could take one thing away from that, and we never have. We've never put more than 70% debt on any of our properties, ever. Because I always need that buffer when markets change.
Right.
And that's probably what saved our ass when the interest rates went up here in 2022. Actually, that's probably the main thing that saved our ass.
Talk to us real quick before we get in any kind of prediction game. Talk to us about how did you and what position were you in when the market just flipped 2020, 2021? How were you able to adjust?
Yeah, so hindsight now, end of 2021 was the peak of the multifamily game, commercial real estate in general.
Right.
Because that's when interest rates were at their lowest. And then come March 2022, we know what the Fed started to do. And I think they went up, 11 times in 9 months?
Yeah.
Never happened. Nobody could have predicted it at that velocity. But, it is what it is. Thankfully, we didn't over leverage one of our properties we bought at that time, right? And we put, I think, 67% debt on it when we acquired it. Now, granted, we had to reno it and do all the other stuff too. But because of that, then we had to race to the finish line to get it completed so we could actually refinance into fixed rate debt because we bought it with variable rate renovation loan, like bridge debt, construction loan type stuff. That was variable rate. So we saw it go from 4.25%.
It just kept going up.
9.5% by the time we're done, and I'm sitting there crapping my pants.
Was it adjusting every quarter, every month, and when was it the adjustment?
I feel like it was every day, bro. It was wild, but we just had to deal with it, and I started to see it going. I'm looking at our interest reserve that we have to pay the interest, and I'm going, holy shit! I'm watching it tick away. I'm going, we need to speed this up. So I moved out to the property.
Yeah,
moved out to the property for about a month and a half. Got with all the crews, sped everything up, got it onto a good speed. We got that thing finished, and then got all the rents up. And by the skinny of our skin, it was July 2023. We closed our refinance with Fannie Mae about a week before the 10-year Treasury just went berserk.
Jacked again. Look, that's I got to say, Justin, that's one thing I really respect about you in the conversation we've had. The ability to move to the point of friction. It's something I was in the Marine Corps, we used to talk about all the time. Leaders move to the point of friction. Getting out of your nice, beautiful San Diego spot and going on site to another state where family's not around and being there for long periods of time to make sure that the deal works is something that a lot of people won't do. They'll fret about it. They'll get anxiety. They'll pull their hair out. They'll yell and scream from their living room without actually moving to the point of friction. Talk to me about what drove that kind of mindset. Because, again, I've heard you talk about it more than once.
It goes back to the financial crisis and watching my dad lose everything. And I said, this is not, excuse me, anything fucking happening to me.
Right.
And it's not happening to our investors either.
Right.
I said, I am not allowing $7 million of investor money to go up in flames because we're not willing to give effort.
Right.
Ain't going to happen. So, and yes, did that screw up some relationships? Maybe, because I had to move out there.
Because you had to be right there, being the micromanager,
You know,
like, no, faster, let's go.
Yeah. To have to be away from family and friends and others. Yeah. And it was devastatingly hard to make that decision. But I knew what was on the line if I didn't, because that was actually one of our first larger deals we had done.
Right.
And I'm like, I can't let one of our first larger deals go up in smoke.
Yeah.
It no fault of my own other than market dynamics.
Right.
But I know that if we go in and give maximum effort, WIT, whatever it takes, then at least I'm going to know that if it goes up in flames, I gave everything I could. And at least then I know, and I can look our investors in the face and say, guys, I mean, I lived on site. Like, it's just I can't control the markets, right? I mean, it is what it is. Yeah.
Look, again, why I have a lot of respect for you for that specifically, and it's a testimony to other people starting out. Because that conversation may happen later on for you when it's 70 million, not 7, or later on in your career when you're running a show and it's 700 million. Yeah. And so that kind of mindset, willing to do whatever it takes, unbelievable. We only have a couple minutes left, so I do want to kind of put this together. Lessons learned. 1, something you'll never do again, and something you will preach to the cows come home. You have to do this for your young students.
It's hard because at the time that was the best debt and stuff out there, even though intuitively I know how challenging that can be because and it's construction money, right? It's always variable rate.
Right.
I think you just need to do a better job at looking at trends to see, what could happen, right? You can't predict it. So that's probably the biggest, never do again thing. What would I tell people? Like the best thing to
what are you preaching to the students right now? What's the number one thing you're telling for your audience when they come in and say, hey, Justin, I want to learn. I want to do this. What's the number one thing? Like, you got to do this. Start doing this.
Yeah. So you got to get educated. I always tell you bring the check equity or the sweat equity, right? When you're coming into these things, you want to get into any kind of real estate investing. It's check equity or sweat. You decide which one you have. And if you have both, you're like a unicorn, right? But if you don't, maybe you don't have any money. Right. Okay. That shouldn't stop you. Because if you can go get educated, get very, very educated on what and be able to execute, you're extremely valuable to somebody with money.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you have capital, but you have no know-how, great. Either partner with somebody who has the execution ability or go learn it yourself. One of the two.
Absolutely.
But that's how you get it. It's either check equity or sweat equity. And that's how you get into real estate. You just have to decide which one you're willing to put up with. Most people don't 100%. Have the capital, right? So then I say, great, you better get educated. They're like, well, I don't want to pay to get educated. I said, dude, you just spent $20,000 to go to college, right? And now you don't want to go, I don't know, go get mentored for $5,000.
You just spent $500 at the bar last night. You're telling me you don't want to go to a weekend course?
I said, because go get mentored. I mean, I spent $20,000 getting mentored, right, by somebody that has very, very just knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And because of that, I was able to fast track, right, close the gap of speed,
right,
and then minimize mistakes. And then now I have somebody I can bang things off of when we're going through tough times. Right. I mean, because that's probably what saved me going through all this chaos the last couple of years was being able to sit there with this guy. Do you know who Rudy Medina is?
Yeah. Didn't he work with Grant Cardone?
Yeah. And I mean, I have never, you talk about somebody that can sit there in complete meditated calm in the midst of literally a tornado going around him. And I'm sitting there, are you freaking out? Or he's like, yeah, man, let's talk through this. I'm like, holy shit, boss, dude. I'm hyperventilating. I mean, anyhow.
I can't underscore enough. I have a coach. I have a mentor. It's 100% necessary in order to be successful in this game. And if you look across the landscape, like you just talked about, we all have that. So,
and pay to play. Like, get in rooms with people. Like, I go to 4 conferences a year now. And I used to go to conferences like 10 of them a year, but I just get general admission. Yeah. Right. And then I had a wise mentor say, bro,
get up front.
You're wasting your time.
Yeah.
He said, don't ever do that again. He said, go to 4 conferences, get the most expensive ticket you can. Trust me. Get in the back, the green rooms, talk to the speakers, get with the people, go to the good events, dinners. Trust me. It'll pay its 10x.
I agree.
And then I've done that ever since the last 2 years, and I've seen just incredible growth from it. And yes, is it scared to go pay $10,000, $15,000 for a ticket?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I hyperventilate, sending that out of my bank account, but I can tell you right now, it's paid itself.
I love it.
tenfold.
Wise words from Justin Brennan. Thank you so much for
You bet,
coming
man.
in,
I wish
sitting
we had
down.
more time, but you're right. We could take 4 hours.
We could, and we'll do it again soon. Everybody, thanks for tuning in to Cash Flow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. Justin, thanks, brother.